Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. I apologize for this not being in my normal setup. Currently, we have COVID running through my house, which means that I don't have enough energy. I'm not technically testing positive, but I feel like absolute garbage. So the idea of setting up my proper setup is the last thing I want to do. So you're getting phone set up with the laptop behind me, bookshelf in the background filled with a bunch of stuff that aren't books. Oops, I'm calling myself out. Also, if this has a bunch of cuts, it's because currently I lose my breath very easily, so there might be times that I might have to pause for a few seconds, breathe, and then continue, so I'll just apologize that right off the bat. But first I'll go through my stats, which I will pop up over here in just a second, and first go through my stats because this is my end of month wrap up. I should have mentioned this. Oh my god, this is my March wrap up. For the second half, I do a mid-month wrap up because I read so many books that if I did just one wrap up, this would be like an hour long. So let's just go straight into the stats. So in March, I read 20 books. Which totaled to 7,886 pages, and my average star rating was a 4.3. I read 3 audiobooks, 13 ebooks, and 4 physical books. And the age ranges were 4 adult, 7 new adult, and 8 YA. And for genres, I read 2 contemporaries, 9 fantasy, 3 paranormal, and 6 romance. So first, let's go straight in with The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I technically read the Kindle edition, but I own the paperback. And this is the 4th book in the Blood and Ash series, so I'm not really going to describe this. I also did an entire spoiler-filled reading vlog, which I'll link, if I remember, in the iCard. I think it's this side, and the description. But I give this book 5 stars. I absolutely love this. Yes, there was a couple of moments where things felt a little rushed, or there was a few moments that felt a little drawn out, but I love the plot twist. I love where this ends off. And again, I have my full thoughts in that reading vlog. It is spoiler-filled, just a warning. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars and I absolutely loved it. Next, we have Only a Monster by Vanessa. This was the January fairy loot, so it has stencil edges and a alternate cover, and this essentially we follow Joan, who is a monster, and in this world monsters can take time from humans to time travel. And when Joan meets this boy named Nick, who ends up being revealed that he is a monster hunter, Joan and another monster named Aaron end up having to travel through time to fix things. And this I gave 4 stars. I did fairly enjoy this, although this is supposed to be the first book in a trilogy, and I don't like how it ends, because it ends almost as if it could be a standalone, because everything is wrapped up. So I'm like, how are things going to mess up and lead into the next 2 books? But I did really enjoy it. Really enjoyed it. A solid 4 star. I will continue the series whenever the next books come out. And yeah. The next book is Dear Love, I Hate You by Eliah Greenwood, and this I gave 4 stars. This is a new adult contemporary romance where we follow Avina, who ends up with this kind of like secret pen pal, and she ends up having to try to figure out who it is, and it ends up being revealed, this is not a spoiler, that it's a boy in her class named Xavier, who is also a childhood friend of hers that they fell out. It's kind of like enemies to lovers, the passing notes back and forth anonymously, and this was fairly good. It was originally, the first half, I was like, oh my god, this is 5-star material. This reminds me so much of Punk 57. And then the second half, there was a bunch of miscommunication. The epilogue brought it down a whole, 0.5 stars. Because, oh my gosh, I hate it. I hate the epilogue. The epilogue doesn't exist to me. But it was a fairly decent read. I will continue the series because it's the first in like a 3-book series. The other books are like following like Avina's and Xavier's like best friends. So I will read that at some point. The next book is The Lost Prince of Cadira by Stephanie Ann. Essentially, we follow Eliza, who is a witch from New Orleans who has the ability to see the dead, and she ends up having to work for the king of Cadira to find the lost prince, who has been missing for 20 years, and the king believes that Eliza can find him. This is like a portal fantasy as Eliza travels to the land of Cadira through a portal where she's originally from, and it is like dark forces. There's this evil person called the Dark Master, and this was really good. I also got to beta read book 2 in the series, but this I gave 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it. This was a reread, and then again I got to beta read book 2, which comes out in June, and I'm very happy I read that, and that one was also 4 stars, but I don't add beta projects to my reading things because a lot of the times the books aren't on Goodreads, and then also I just don't count them, but I did really enjoy this. The next book I read was Rhapsodic by Thalassa, and this I gave it 4 stars. Essentially, we follow Callie, who's a siren, and she has these beads up her arm that represent debts that she owes to the bargainer, and the bargainer is a person that you can basically, if you need something done, he can do it for you, but in exchange for something else. And with Callie having these debts, it is 7 years after Callie has gotten these debts, and the bargainer has returned to claim his debt. And that's basically it. It is like a fantasy romance. I did not expect this to take place in like modern day LA. And it also is kind of that portal fantasy as Callie and the bargainer end up traveling to the Fae realms for something, because there is essentially female Fae warriors have gone missing, and then they've been returned, essentially having a child, and we're trying to figure out why. And this I really enjoyed. I'm really, really, really excited to continue the series. I didn't get book 2 on my April TBR, but I might try to just binge read the rest of the series in May because I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was Sacrifice by Katee Robert, and this is a paranormal romance so essentially, I'm going to struggle to describe this because I honestly am like horrible at describing things. Essentially, we have a female character. I cannot remember the name for the life of me, I'm sorry. But essentially she is almost sold by her father to this like bloodline vampire, and the bloodline vampires are like rare. They're like, they have like a specific bloodline, and our main female character is a half vampire, which means that if she and the bloodline vampire have a child, it would cause a new like bloodline of vampires that her father could control. But when our main character meets this guy, I already forgot his name. No, Malachi, that is his name. Essentially they come to a different agreement, and I will say this book does have the it is a reverse harem because also 2 of Malachi's friends end up getting involved. And I will say this book, well, this series in general, has the pregnancy trope, which if you do not like it, you would not like this at all. I'm meh about it, but it was like a quick 150-page read, and I will be continuing the series at some point because there's 3 books. The next book I read is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune, and this essentially we follow Nick, who has ADHD, and essentially he lives in this city where there are these superheroes / supervillains, Shadowstar and Pyrostorm, and essentially Nick kind of wants to not find out who they are, but wants to like befriend Shadowstar and like all of that. But it's also him dealing with like his friend group and like all of that. It's just a fun read. I gave this 4.5. I really liked it. I actually will be reading the second book in either April or May because I have it from my library. I just really like this. I might do an entire review on this because I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I have thoughts that a lot of it are spoilers. But yeah. The next book I read is The Well of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata, and this is a slow burn romance. Essentially, we follow Aiden, who's a football player, and Vanessa, who is his assistant, and Vanessa quits, and then Aiden ends up essentially being like to Vanessa's like, I kind of need to get a green card so I can stay here, because he is from Canada, and this book takes place in the U.S. and it is a fake marriage between the two of them. It is slow burn to God's hell. I'm literally like the 90% mark. I don't think feelings were even revealed, but I gave this 5 stars because I absolutely loved it. I read over half of this book in one night, and this is a over 500-page book. Yeah. I really enjoyed it, though. I really want to read more of Mariana Zapata's books because I've heard she's the queen of slow burn, and honestly, I kind of want to see if that's true. The next book I read is Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series, where I'll explain book 1, which is essentially we follow Selena Sardothian. She's an assassin. She's been in prison for the last year, and she ends up getting this opportunity to gain her freedom by basically competing in this assassin competition. She wins, she gains her freedom, she has to work for the king, but now she's in a different country, she's in a different, on a different continent doing things, and yeah, this is a reread for me. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely love Sarah J. Maas. I tabbed this book fairly a lot because I just love it so much. I'm buddy reading the whole series with a few people on Instagram throughout the whole year, so this was March's book, and I'm very excited to continue the series because I'll be reading The Assassin's Blade in April. The next book I read is Raven's Cry by Charlie Nottingham, and this is a paranormal reverse harem. We have Rain, who is a witch, and essentially a vampire named Ezra ends up kind of contracting Rain to kind of rid this estate of evil spirits, and in the meantime they form a relationship, and then there's also Rain's best friend Graham involved, and then Ezra's boyfriend Warren. So it's this whole polyamorous thing. I fucking loved it. I gave it 4 stars. And I don't really know what else I can say. I really enjoyed the world building. I enjoyed the topics that we had. I kind of talked about this in my vlog last week. But I love how there's a topic of explaining what polyamory is, how it works, or at least how it works in this situation. And then also about being queer in history, because Ezra and Warren are vampires. They have been vampires for a century, and they have been together for that whole time, so it's about them being queer in the past. We learn a bit about that, and I did enjoy that, because a lot of books never really talk about it, or at least I haven't read any books that I guess feature it, so I haven't seen it. I'm rambling, but I enjoyed this book. I want book 2 yesterday, and book 1 actually just came out yesterday when I'm filming this because I got an arc of it, so I read it a week early. The next book I read is In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. This I gave a 3.5. This essentially we follow Prince Tal, who he's going on his coming of age tour, and he ends up the boat that he's on ends up discovering a shipwrecked boat where there is a prisoner on it, and essentially Tal is tasked with looking after the prisoner. Prisoner escapes, and then Tal ends up getting kidnapped himself, and that's the very brief premise. Tal also has this magic that is forbidden, and everyone views it as evil, when in reality it's just basic powers. And I'm conflicted about this book because I really wanted to love it, but I didn't. I enjoyed it. It was good. It felt too rushed in places. I also felt like there wasn't enough character development, and I honestly felt like I wanted to see more of the side characters, but we didn't. That's why it's at 3.5. I definitely don't regret reading it at all, but it just didn't live up to my expectations. The next book I read is The Hate You Give. Well, I technically listened to it on audiobook and reading it, but I count it as an audiobook because I listened to it more. But The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I fucking loved this book. I read it for school. I gave it 5 stars. But again, I just fucking loved it. This essentially, we follow Star, who essentially one of her childhood best friends, Khalil, ends up getting murdered by a cop. And it is kind of the story about getting justice, and that's kind of the basic premise of this. I'm reading this for school, so I'm having to do assignments around it, but honestly, those assignments are really easy because I love this book. I loved all the conversations we had in this, because they're all real, and I said this in my vlog. This feels like the most realistic book I've ever read, because I know that the things that happen in this book happen every single day. If you do not believe that, I don't know really what to say. I also love the family dynamic, and I just really liked it. And then the final book I read was She Drives Me Crazy by Quindlen. I technically finished this in April. Well, technically I also finished this in April, but with She Drives Me Crazy, we essentially follow Scotty Zajac. She is she's on the girls basketball team, and when she ends up getting into a car accident with the head cheerleader, Irene, they end up having to carpool together for a little bit, and this then leads to, because Irene and Scotty are kind of hanging out, that the cheerleading team ends up kind of starting to root for the girls basketball team, and then it ends up being a fake dating situation with Scotty and Irene, so that the girls basketball team can gain a little bit more people caring about it. And yeah, I really enjoyed this because obviously it's sapphic. Anything sapphic I will read. Although I need to read more, I always am like, I want to read more sapphic things, and then I never fucking put them on my TBR, and then I get so fucking mad at myself. If you didn't already tell just from the way I'm speaking. But this I enjoyed. It definitely had a little bit of the miscommunication, the third act breakup, but I'm honestly fine with it. And I just really enjoyed this. I listened to this audiobook, and honestly, I do not regret it at all. I don't really think I have anything else to say except I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah. So those are the books that I read in the second half of March. So yeah, I don't really think I have anything else. Let me know what books you read in March, whether all of it or your favorite book, or if you've read any of these books and your thoughts, or if any of these books are on your TBR. Really, just comment anything bookish below, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope that my next video is in my normal setup, because I just want to film properly, but even this is taking so much of my energy out. I'm gonna need to lay down after this. It's taking so much energy out. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!